There is a number that gets thrown around constantly in Australian retirement advice. $1 million in super. It is treated as the finish line, the magic figure that means you have made it. So here is the question. Almost nobody answers honestly. How many Australians actually reach it? Not how many should. Not how many are on track. How many people actually walk into retirement with $1 million sitting in their super account? The honest answer is going to surprise you, because it is far smaller than the finance world implies, and the way the number usually gets reported is quietly misleading. Today we are climbing the entire ladder of Australian super balances at retirement, from the bottom rung to the very top, using Treasury's own retirement model and the latest figures from the tax office. And I am going to show you exactly where the real line sits, and why the millionaire number is not what it seems. First, I have to clear up the number you have probably seen, because it is the source of almost all the confusion around this question. You will find headlines and plenty of finance videos saying that over 300,000 Australians have more than $1 million in super, and that figure is real. The tax office data does show it, but it is technically true and deeply misleading at the very same time. And once you see why, you cannot unsee it. Here is why. That count includes everyone with a big balance, and most of them are still working. A 55-year-old executive with $1.2 million in super, still drawing a salary and still contributing, is in that number. So is a 68-year-old who retired years ago. It lumps together people at completely different stages of life into one headline. The question we are actually asking is much more specific. Not how many people currently hold $1 million, but how many cross the retirement line with it. Those are two different populations, and confusing them is the single most common mistake in Australian retirement commentary. For the real answer, you need a model that follows people to the exact moment they stop working, not a snapshot of every large account in the country. And the moment you do that, the number does not just shrink, it collapses. So here is the real answer. The Treasury's retirement model, called MARIA, projects that of the Australians who retired around 2020, only 7% retired with a super balance above $1 million. 7%. 93 out of every 100 retirees walked in with less. And it is worse if you are a woman. The same model found only 5% of women retiring in that period reached $1 million, while men were almost twice as likely. The $1 million retirement is not the norm in Australia. It is the rare exception, achieved by fewer than 1 in 14 people. The finish line everyone talks about is one that the overwhelming majority never cross. Now let's actually climb the ladder, because the average hides everything. Start at the rung where most Australians really stand. According to ASFA's October 2025 analysis of tax office data, the median super balance for Australians aged 60 to 64, right at the doorstep of retirement, is about $205,000. Median means the middle. Half of all Australians approaching retirement have less than $205,000 in super. Let that sink in, because it is a very long way from $1 million. And there is a gender split hiding inside even that number. For men, the median is around $220,000. For women, it is about $163,000. A 26% gap sitting right at the moment it matters most, driven by career breaks, part-time work, and decades of lower average pay. The person the statistics call typical is not sitting on a fortune. They are sitting on a couple of $100,000 and heading for a retirement that leans heavily on the pension. Here is where the finance industry quietly misleads you again with a single word: the average. You will often hear that the average super balance at retirement is around $395,000. That sounds a lot healthier than 205. But the average and the median are telling two completely different stories. The average is dragged upward by a small number of enormous balances. A handful of people with $3, $5, $10 million in super pull the average up for everyone else. The median strips those outliers out and shows you the middle. When the average is nearly double the median, that is a mathematical fingerprint of extreme inequality at the top. Whenever someone quotes you the average super balance, they are quoting the number that makes things look better than they are. Climb to the next rung, and you find where the great majority of Australians actually sit. Between 75 and 80% of Australians retire with less than $500,000 in super. 4 out of 5. Sit with that for a second, because it reframes the entire $1 million conversation. The figure the finance world holds up as the target is more than double what 80% of people actually retire with. It is not a stretch goal for most people. It is a different universe. For the typical Australian, the realistic question is not, how do I get to $1 million? It is, how do I make somewhere between 2 and 500,000, combined with the age pension, actually deliver a decent life? And that is a completely different, far more useful, and far less discouraging conversation than the one the industry keeps having. Now, the millionaire rung itself. We know only about 7% get here at retirement. But who are they? The tax office data shows the great bulk of Australians with balances over $1 million are aged 60 and over, which makes sense, a lifetime of contributions and compounding, but they are a small and specific group. These are, overwhelmingly, people who earned high incomes for decades, salary sacrificed aggressively, or ran their own self-managed super funds with business assets inside them. For a typical Australian on an average wage, with the compulsory 12% going in, $1 million in super by retirement is not a realistic default outcome. It requires either a high income, decades of extra voluntary contributions, or both. That is not a criticism, it is just the arithmetic. The system was designed to supplement the age pension for most people, not to make everyone a millionaire. And finally, the very top of the ladder, the rung almost nobody reaches. Around 3.1% of Australian households have super balances over $2 million. Climb higher still, and Treasury estimates that by July 2025, there were around 80,000 people with more than $3 million in super, out of a population of over 26 million. That top rung is now in the government's sights. From the 1st of July 2026, a new tax called Division 296 applies to balances above $3 million, adding an extra 15% on the earnings attributable to the portion above that threshold. The threshold is not indexed for now, which means that as balances grow over the decades, more people will quietly cross into it. The very top of the super ladder just became a more expensive place to stand. So, let's lay the whole ladder out. Half of Australians retire with under $205,000. Around 80% retire with under $500,000. Just 7% reach $1 million. About 3% of households pass $2 million, and a rarefied 80,000 people sit above $3 million, right where the new tax begins. That is the real distribution, and it looks nothing like the $1 million target the finance industry sells. The people quoting you averages and $1 million finish lines are describing the top of the ladder, while most Australians are standing on the bottom 3 rungs. So, bring it together. How many Australians actually retire with $1 million in super? About 7 in 100. The number you have seen that is 10 times bigger counts people who are still working, and the average balance everyone quotes is inflated by a tiny group at the very top. The honest truth is that 4 out of 5 Australians retire with less than $500,000, and the system was built assuming exactly that, topped up by the age pension. None of this means a comfortable retirement is out of reach. It means the target you have been given is the wrong one. Chasing $1 million you will probably never hit is far less useful than knowing the real number for your own life and building toward it. If this changed how you see your own super, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one. I'll see you there.